lapses in judgment are much more tolerant than lapses in time. And unfortunately, we are going through one of those right now. I won't divulge which. But in the meantime that we are here, so I'll give a very informal sort of an intro about the first session that we were having. Definitely is very, very interesting. And I would like as many people as we have, as many readers that we have here to attend this very session because it has a very, very important first line which says rethink. Aging is the second part. Let's come to that later. We have our esteemed panelists for the same.
Hello and welcome, dear readers, to the second season of Vidarbha Literary Festival, your friendly neighborhood and all-inclusive Lit Fest. As you know, this time we are all for inclusion, the nuances and the big picture. We feel strongly that to know one's differences is imperative to understanding and eventually to acceptance. Every time I look at senior citizens living with the passion of sweet 16s, I start missing my grandparents a little more. How often is it that we find people saying good things about growing old? I'm sure it's got multiple layers which get visible as one takes a nuanced approach towards aging. And to tell us so much more about the same, we have with us today author Nidhi Chawla. Nidhi Chawla, co-founder and CEO of Silver Talkies and co-author of Rethink Aging, is well known in the financial services industry. She has held positions at McKinsey & Company and SREI International Securities. Nidhi is currently a member of the CII Senior Care Committee and has won numerous leadership accolades for her work in the elder care industry. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, ma'am. We're also pleased to have with us Mr. Shashikant Chaudhary, who will be the moderator for the session. Shashikant, a serial entrepreneur, currently co-founder of Babyverse, 10th Venture, is investor and mentor to many startups and has invested in very interesting startups like Shepherds.com, Lucid Implants, Native Chefs, and lots more. He is conducting innovative courses on entrepreneurship at VNIT. He was Managing Director, India, for Global Logic, managing more than 4,000 engineers in India. He has over 35 years of experience in senior management and academics and was awarded Global Nagpur Award Individual Professional in recognition of individuals' contribution towards Nagpur development and improvement towards becoming a global city. We're so pleased to have you all here with us today. May I now request our moderator to kindly escort our author on stage to commence with the session.
Very good morning to you all. And it's still a good morning. We are still a lot of time before 12. And I think, this is going to be an interesting session. The point at which I was introduced to Nidhi, and yesterday I met Nidhi. And one thing that really comes out very strong is her open mind and inquisitiveness. And I was supposed to take her to Gondwana Club, and we were supposed to have a session there just to understand from the book's perspective. And I told her that, we are going to the Gondwana, and I've come a long way from the other side of the city, from the Radisson, near Radisson to the, this Chitney Center, and we are going to go to Gondwana. And she said, how long? And I said, 15 minutes. And she was laughing. Because, to 15 minutes in the context of every day, she travels almost 2 hours in Bangalore, but nobody can beat Bangalore in terms of like the weather and all those kind of stuff. And the kind of questions she was asking me on the way, right from the first question, tell me about, 5 to 10 good things about Nagpur. What's so special about it? And I was like on the spot, right from that point itself. Coming back on the topic itself, because the way already, our anchor told us about the book, but I read this book in a very single sitting. It's like a 165, 170 page, very compact book, absolutely in a very, very flowing kind of, it has a kind of a flow. And the way the book is written with almost like a no-gyan approach. No gyan is being spread. Real life stories which you can relate to, and actually every part of the book or every sort of a chapter of the book has those kind of stories as illustrations, which you can relate to, and also the second part of that chapter tells us how exactly you should go about it. So there are practical tips about each of those chapters, and we'll come to those chapters. And very interesting, the life stories of people who have done PhD at age of 75, who started running marathons at 80s, all the stories which are so important in the context of the changing India, because it really battles the ageism, the conventional concept so deep rooted in the Indian society in that matter. I mean, we have a stereotype image when it comes to aging in terms of, grandparents. Moment we talk about it, it's like the grandkids, pilgrimage, all those kind of conventional stuff. But moment they start talking about second career, and we say, why? They start talking about companionship, and we say, oh, that is something which people do not relate to. And what the even Rita Pathak, she has said as a kind of endorsement, the kind of the stories and the kind of the things which the Nidhi has brought up along with her co-author, they touch those subjects which are normally under the carpet. People don't like to talk about those kind of topics when it comes to even the sex, senility, all those kind of things at the latter part of the age. And what they have done is literally, with these kind of stories, have come out with the kind of approaches, the new age India. Because India society is transitioning. We are into a different stage right now, and we are going to get into a very different stage. And how to live your fullest potential at the sunset of your life. That's what the books really talks about in a very, very simple language. So, and this is going to be a very big problem because by 2050, we are going to be 300 million old people, which is equivalent to almost like the fourth largest country in the world, right? So, I mean, right now, USA is like close to 310, 320 million people, and we are going to be 300 million old people. Yeah. Now, let's get back to your journey, per se. You worked at McKinsey for 7 years, and then it's a kind of a corporate world, and then you changed to this world, a social world per se, of helping the old people. How this transition happened?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Uh, so I must first give a disclaimer here that both the authors here do not have any medical background. We do not kind of come with an experience of a medical professional to be able to, say, "Ki, this is the book that you should refer to just because you're growing old and you need to look at it." But what I can tell you with great confidence is that this book is actually inspired by the lives of older adults, having seen them, interacted with them very, very closely in the last 8-9 years of the work that we have been doing at Silver Talkies. So this, I think you summed it up very beautifully, in how the book. So how the book kind of summarizes from the learnings of experiences that we have had working with older adults. But to answer your question on, why the transition from McKinsey to doing something with older adults, this is a very personal story because, for me, when my father retired, I had made a general assumption that for him, retirement would be all about having fun, doing things which he did not do when he was working, when he was raising a family, pursuing a career. And so So I've told this story many times, so I'll repeat it one more time. But so it's like, so when he retired, I bought him a lot of art supplies as his retirement gift because he used to be very fond of drawing and sketching. And I thought now would be his time and he would really go all out and do things for himself. But I was surprised when he did it for some 3-4 months, and then he went back to his old ways of watching TV, going for a walk, running chores, doing errands. There was nothing, no X factor, which I had assumed very big time that will happen, right? Similarly, for my co-founder of Silver Talkies and the co-author of this book, Reshmi, when her father retired, he was a very active, career professional. But when he retired, she suddenly saw a drastic, dramatic shift in his lifestyle. He became socially isolated. He would just stay at home, would not venture out. He would just spend time in front of TV. While her mother, who had been a homemaker, when she found time, she had become an entrepreneur in her own right. She had started hand painting these beautiful dupattas and saris, which she was selling, and she was, finding her own freedom through her work. So there was a lot of disconnect that we were seeing in our own respective families, and when we wanted to we thought we will look for opportunities for our own parents, give them a platform where they could really stay active. We really did not find anything. And that's when the realization came that it's actually a huge void that exists in our society where there is a lot of work which happens around children, there is a lot of work which happens around younger adults, but older adults are actually completely taken for granted and completely ignored, right? And if you were to put an older person in a group, in a mixed group with a younger person, and you were asked to learn something together, you will, it's very natural to feel out of place because the pace requirement, the interests, they're also different. They are so varying, right? So that's when we, I think I was on a break from work from McKinsey. I had moved to Bangalore, and there came an opportunity in front of us stemming from a personal need, and that's how the whole transition happened and the idea of Silver Talkies germinated, that why not create an exclusive community for the 55 plus where they could feel belong, they could feel, they find a community of their own. They do things at their own pace as per their own interest. And that there has been no looking back from there. I think we have just moved on.
So I think it was 2014 when you started.
2014,
out,
yes.
It's almost been 7-8 years now.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about the Silver Talkies, how the name came up, and your journey in the Silver Talkies. That would help set the context.
Sure. So Silver Talkies, actually silver, the word, so both Reshmi and I contributed to the name. A lot of people confuse, and they actually a company in the business of making movies because we call ourselves talkies, but we are not. Silver represents, of course, the silver generation, and talkies was something that I came up with because we wanted to be their voice, something, give them a forum or a platform where they could be heard. So that's how the name Silver Talkies came about. So Silver Talkies actually has been is still an evolving journey, even though we have 8 years behind us. So it's a community platform for anybody who's 55 plus. And as they become a member, they become a part of this very vibrant community of like-minded individuals. So we have something called the Silver Talkies Club, where they find peers of their own age group. And since it's 55 plus, my youngest member is about 54 actually. Some people were very keen to start right away. And my oldest member is 88. And so, but there is no differentiation within that group by age because they come with so much of rich experience. And the beauty of the whole model is that even if a person is older and is feeling a bit immobile or has issues, there are younger people who actually support them and egg them on and give them something to look forward to. So they don't feel lonely. They don't feel socially isolated because now they have a group to call their own, right? And also given the fact, so that's like kind of meeting their social and emotional needs. Then we also do a lot of work around engagement, where, all of these they have so much of gusto about, going about their life and being so enthusiastic about where they are in the stage of their life, and so much of things they want to learn, they want to continue learning. So we also have a very active engagement calendar that we put out for them every month. So starting from health and awareness talks to sessions on finance, legal issues, a lot of fun and entertainment programs like music. We have done ballroom dance workshops, we've done theater workshops, we've made them learn bridge, we've done classes on Spanish language or French language. So it's like, so we keep kind of taking up, understanding the pulse of their interest, and then we put together a calendar which would meet diverse interests and needs. So there are a lot of classes which happen online, like there is online yoga class, pranayama class. They're learning bhajans in different languages, which imagine, learning new bhajans in different languages, what impact it would be having on their cognitive skills, and their brains are actively stimulated, right? So our work is based on something called the active aging framework. I know you have a question there for me on that, but I'll kind of do it here. Yeah. So active aging is basically a concept defined by WHO, which says, how do you kind of develop and maintain your functional abilities as you grow older? And it has some 7 pillars, starting from your physical and intellectual capabilities to your social and emotional well-being, and also your vocational well-being and spiritual. Spiritual is also one of the key pillars there. And then, of course, you need a supporting environment. So environmental well-being, on how supportive are your infrastructures as you grow older. So there is an entire 7-dimensional framework called the active aging framework. So Silver Talkies' work is completely based on that framework.
Interesting. So, let's turn around this session a little bit. Instead of conventionally, we have almost the last kind of 10 minutes for the questions to come in from the audience. Why don't we do it reverse way a little bit, in terms of you asking certain questions,
Okay.
which will again set the context, and also in the process would love to understand what prompted you to write a full-fledged book.
Sure.
You were already doing the Silver Talkies, so over to you.
Okay. Okay, this is a question for all of you, and I would like you to participate, but there is one condition, that you all have to be brutally honest, not politically correct. Okay? So first thing that comes to your mind is what I want you to answer with. Okay? So if I tell you, if you imagine an old person, what are the visuals that immediately come to your head? White hair, okay. What else? Sorry? Brittle bones. Okay. Dependent. Hospitals. Slow. Okay. Out of sync from the present times. Unfriendly, okay. Tech unfriendly, all right, okay. So if you listen to all the words that came up, right, you actually have a very morose, like a sad picture in your mind of what old age would look like, right? But now, have you observed people around you, the elderly people around you, are they actually that? No, they are not. Yeah, but then it's not like hospitals, right? That's like one end extreme which may happen, may not happen, right? And not everybody will stoop. But that's the general picture that we have about old age in our heads, right? So, for example, when we started out, I was narrating this incident to somebody this morning because I got this question asked to me. So when we started out, we also probably had a similar stereotype in our head too. Right? So when we started doing events, we assumed, okay, we will just do a yoga class, or we will do a spiritual discourse. This is what they need. But believe me or not, but you actually offer them whatever, and they love doing it. So as I said, we've done ballroom dancing. Imagine like a senior citizen learning ballroom dancing and line dancing. They do Bollywood dance. They sing. They participate. We have done fashion show with them. And they absolutely rocked it. Even when I went on the stage at the end of the program, I couldn't believe, I felt like a very proud mother that my group had sashayed on the ramp so amazingly. They were rock stars. So I have people in my club, and not just in my club, in general, you will find umpteen examples of such people who have actually broken all these barriers and all these 8 stereotypes, and they are really taking like life by its horns and saying, I want to do this, right? Now, second question to you. Whenever you speak to an elderly parent or any elderly relative of yours, what is the first question that you ask them? What is your general conversation starter? How is your health? Right? Health. And when you ask about health, you're only looking at their physical health, right? कि आपके जोड़ों में दर्द तो नहीं हो रहा, आपकी पीठ का दर्द कैसा है, right? That's the general first question we will ask. But how many times have we pondered about how are they feeling emotionally, right? Are they feeling connected with their own family? Do they have friends? Do they have people to talk to? Right? These are things which we completely sideline and ignore because we probably do not have that awareness only. And since they are elder to us, there's a general assumption कि हाँ वो ठीक ही होंगे. Right? It doesn't even occur to us कि नहीं उनकी ज़रूरतें change हो रही हैं. They also need our care. They also need our support. Right? So yeah, so this is what the book is all about, that actually their needs and wants are very different from what we assume they are. So I'll just quote a survey here. There was a survey which was done a few years ago called the Juk Juk Ji survey, where it was a question that was asked to younger adults who had parents living alone, asking them, what do you think is your parents' major concern? And as all of us just found out, about 65, 67% of them said health, physical health. The same question when asked to their parents, only 10% of the parents said that physical health is my issue. 36% of them said social engagement and social isolation is my issue. So that's the kind of narrative that we need to, relook at, what we understand of aging and what it actually is.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, and I think you followed that theme in the book itself because, that's 10% weightage in terms of the health, but the rest of the topics which are not really considered or not discussed, and you have really brought those topics in forefront, and they not only about, you talked about those activities and what the Silver Talk does, but how there is a correlation between those areas with respect to emotional or social or the second life, all those pillars you were talking, how they relate ultimately to the well-being and health. Right. That is what is so important in the context. Otherwise, people tend to look this as a kind of just an, being engaged in the activity, but they really don't connect those things as such an important part. So coming back, how much time did you take to write this book? And
took us 1.5 years.
And what was the time period?
I think we submitted the proposal to Penguin just before COVID, but the writing happened during COVID time.
And did COVID, because, did the COVID has its own set of challenges. Did COVID bring in some additional nuances to the whole narrative?
Oh yes, it did. It did. I think in many ways, it made the book much richer because, as we all know, during the pandemic, the spotlight was on the seniors, given that they were the most vulnerable, and suddenly they were forced to stay indoors. There was so much of paranoia and so much of fear, and things were actually very bad, right? And that's when I think loneliness and isolation came to the forefront. While these issues always have been in existence, I think COVID just brought it out to the fore, to the awareness of people that how loneliness needs to be looked at, right? And how many of these seniors, and I think even without my saying it, we are all somewhere intuitively aware that how our society is actually undergoing a shift, right? From joint family systems to living in nuclear families, to life expectancy going up, right? From decades ago, the life expectancy was about 56. Now it's 70 plus, right? So medical advancements has made it so easy for people to go on and live a longer life and a healthier life. But with the pandemic, I think it allowed us to really look deeper at what the issues were. And I think people also became more sensitive and receptive to hearing about these issues.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point because you mentioned about it in terms of like the society in a transition right now, right? From the joint families to nuclear, from houses to the apartments, the technology making the inroads. Though we are connected electronically, but socially we are distanced. All those things are now creating another set of problems. So, in that context, the framework which you are talking about, which we are diving into the books now, book part of it, uh, there is a concept of active aging, and there is a concept of almost like a conscious aging. So, can you please elaborate on those two things?
Yeah. So active aging, as I said initially, is basically a wellness framework which looks at 7 dimensions of one's well-being, right? Conscious aging is slightly different in the sense it's like very consciously you are aware of what stage of life you are at, and then you are putting in effort behind actually aging well, right? So that's conscious aging, where you enable a person to age better very, very consciously. So that's where the difference is.
Yep. So, you know, what's the kind of the target segment right now for this particular book in terms of the readers as well as the kind of the work which you have done? Is it more towards urban or rural or urban reach or urban middle class? What's the kind of segment of?
Sure. So since the book is, based on people we have interacted with, and since we primarily end up working with the urban seniors, and that too belonging to largely, I think, middle class and upper middle class. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of economic segment and geographic segment that we have been able to cater to. So the book is drawing from learnings from that segment. But in terms of who the book is intentioned for, I think this book is intentioned for every one of us who's in this room, irrespective of your age, because the book is, is meant to be a kind of a guide to age well for all of us, right? I am 46 today, right? But I draw a lot of inspiration from what I see my elderly people doing, right? So, and it's also making me aware of the needs of my own elderly parents too. So it's not just for me to age well, but it's also how can I support my parents to age better? What do I need to look out for? So I think it's meant for all of us in terms of audience.
So I think again an interesting point that it's not only for the adults per se or the elder people, it is also for the younger adults when they start looking at their own as they will phase into the older ones and how they can really help their parents in having this kind of sunset years as a kind of a very useful and vibrant kind of things. And your book is very much on the positive side. It gives the lot of aspects and help in terms of living that purposeful, engaged kind of a life. But there is other side of the life too. I mean, you gave a very good example of Lavates over there. And that's also very, very sort of like extremely 180 degrees opposite of what the continuous message in the book is all about. And there are these other set of problems, which maybe you want to talk to the audience because, as they say, we are invisible to society.
So I think, the example that Shashikanji is referring to of the Lavates, now this is a couple in Mumbai who actually, I think in 2018 had petitioned the Supreme Court saying that they would want to die with dignity together. So they were actually asking for active euthanasia. So while passive euthanasia kind of has been allowed now, but active euthanasia is still not legal in our country. It's not allowed. But they really petitioned Supreme Court saying that we would like to do that. And why? Because they don't have any children. They stay in a Mumbai chawl all by themselves. There is nobody to take care of them. So they dread a day when they would become bedridden or one of them will, move on and the other would be left behind. So imagine having to live under that kind of future, having that kind of future in front of you. So, of course, there is a huge reality from what we were saying, the nuclear families, the empty nesters. Many seniors live away from their parents today, or from the children today, right? They are all living in different cities. And that's the harsh reality of our society today. And and then there are issues like elder abuse, which is very commonly discussed in senior care forums. Elder abuse is like not just physical abuse that we come across, that an elderly person is being hit by, a son or a daughter-in-law, but there is a lot of emotional and verbal abuse as well, which comes in. Right? And these are very real issues which a lot of seniors go through, and it's all kind of kept hush-hush, ki wo, it would be a stigma or it would be a mark on my family and stuff. People don't talk about it. But then there are elderly helplines which have been set up specifically to handle such situations. When things go out of hand, they do get reported. Right? So these are the real challenges which exist. So while the book kind of, says there are a lot of positive ways to look at, but yes, you're right, there are challenges, and even those positive aging stories may not be for everyone, right? So we very categorically do mention that that we are not saying that aging will not happen, or you will not have ailments. That will come, you will come across that. There is no running away from it. I think the intention of the book is to kind of say that even though these things are happening, how can you try to keep a positive attitude within your limitations and your circumstances, or how to do better for your own self, right? Because we are talking about a generation which did not really know how to take care of themselves, right? So the economic dependence which came in, or the challenges which came in, and they were so busy raising a family. Like I, for example, if I have a huge fight with my parents all the time when it comes to spending on themselves for themselves, they're always saving to spend on their grandchildren. So I cannot expect my parents to really go out and buy something for themselves. And if I buy for them, then also it's a big no-no. It doesn't work for them because beti hai, kaise kar rahi hai? Right? So that's the kind of society we are in. So, but the idea is, but I think it's just time that we cannot look at aging very unidimensionally. There is a multidimensional facet, there are new facets which are emerging. And with the new generation of seniors who are coming up, who have a better economic status, they want a better lifestyle now because they have tasted what independence can feel like. They are the ones who are exerting that independence now. They want to live better. And they are the ones who, are the ones who are breaking these barriers and stereotypes and living for themselves. So that's the shifting narrative that the book kind of talks
very, very
about.
important in terms of one of the line in that lady says that now she is more assertive than their previous, till the age she lived up to like 55 and 60, but she feels more independent, more assertive. And the point you are trying to make is there is, I mean, these people have started thinking about spending on themselves, asserting, expressing on themselves, and there is no, a kind of a stereotype that is to be attached. Oh, you have to look for the grandkids, and there is no life for you. Those kind of things. So you touched upon this multidimensional aspect, and how this multidimensional aspect. What are those? I mean, you talked about little bit about different dimensions, but why those different dimensions are important with respect to the active aging per se, and is there any kind of a data or a research which says that, okay, socially or emotionally, or having kind of your second years really helps your aging in much more fruitful manner?
So definitely there are a lot of studies out there which talk about how social and emotional well-being actually plays a very, very heavy role into your physical well-being. So while we were talking about health comes first, what I have experienced and learned from interacting with seniors again is actually when they are feeling socially and emotionally healthy, their physical and mental well-being automatically goes up, right? So for example, uh, I have a retired colonel who's member of our club, and his wife passed away a few years ago. And I think he spent a lot of many years after his wife's loss, feeling very lonely and isolated again. He almost was at the verge of being depressive. And then I think he decided to look out for something for himself, and he came across us and he became a member. And in his own words, he said, if I hadn't found Silver Talkies at that time, I really would have been deep in depression and I would have lost myself. Right? So, so it's like the social and emotional well-being actually is not looked at or given the weightage that it should be given. And that's where our emphasis has always been. that you can do so much more for your own parents if you were to actually look at their emotional well-being and ensure they have social connections which are thriving and which are alive. Because it's understandable, with age they start losing family, they start losing friends, but are there ways to keep them connected, keep their social connectivity, networking really going for them? Because the beauty of the whole thing is, another member, I would give her example as well, that she turned 60, I think, a year or two ago, and her message to me on her birthday was, Nidhi, I am feeling so delighted to enter my senior years today. I'm adding this zero to my, this big number to my age. She said, because I haven't felt like this even at 45. I'm feeling so much more fitter because she had been attending classes with us. She was doing fitness classes. So she's learned to take care of herself. Suddenly, she's discovered what it is like to care for oneself. So she is having fun. She goes traveling now. She, in spite of if her husband's not accompanying, she goes with her friends. So she's doing whatever she loves to do. She's learning gardening. She's very creative. She does a lot of artwork and all. So people are just discovering what they did not know about themselves earlier.
Interesting. So I think you are also, some of the pillars you talk about the second innings. You talked about the social part of it, and you talked about the mental, part of it. And can you little bit touch upon, and if you have some examples you love of those protagonists you have mentioned in your books in terms of companionships and second inning?
So, in fact, when I was listening in the keynote address, I realized the topic was inclusion, the theme this year at VLF, and I was thinking about how ageism is anti-inclusion, and ageism is more about where you do discrimination basis age. When you assume कि कितनी बार हुआ है, you're on the road and you see an elderly person driving a car, your reaction would be, अरे घर जाके बैठो, क्यों गाड़ी चला रहे हो, right? And it's instinctive. We are all attuned like that, right? Uncle ji, आप क्या कर रहे हो? But that is ageism, and that exists in all our spheres. Like, again, an example which is quoted in the book, which is from my own family. Like, I make an assumption that if my mom's knees are hurting, then she should start sitting on a stool when she's doing her puja. Why is she troubling herself by sitting on the floor? So I got a very surprising answer from my mom when I had asked her about this. When I was telling her, "Mommy, please sit on the stool. No, why are you trying to sit on the floor when you have a difficulty getting up?" So she told me, Nidhi, I want to do this as long as I can because it makes me feel mobile. It keeps me flexible. If I stop doing it right now, I'll start feeling old. So there is a fine line between caring and imposing, right? So we as caring children sometimes tend to be overprotective. So either we are not caring at all, we don't know what's happening with our parents, or we go the other way, right? So I think ageism in careers, imagine getting retired at 60 and having nothing to do, and you still have like good 20, 30 years of your life ahead of you. What do you expect from them? So second careers, there are so many examples that we have come across of people who had full-fledged careers, like bankers who has gone all out. There's Mr. Sukumar, who's quoted in the book. He has had a penchant for photography. He was a banker all his life. Post-retirement, he took up photography in such a big way that he goes all around the world covering sports events like FIFA and all the IPLs and all. So much so that Sachin Tendulkar's book ka cover image is a photograph which was clicked by him. Imagine, it's like life has changed for him. I have ladies in my group who have converted their hobbies like knitting and all into full-fledged ventures. They sell through Facebook, but then of course they are supported by family as well, because expecting them to be online on social media and to learn without any help and support is asking for too much, right? So your earlier question around technology, right? So there is a challenge, yes, but can they adapt to it? Of course they can adapt to it. but they do need some patience. They do need some hand holding and all, but it can be done. So this lady whom I'm talking about, who has a knitting venture, her children, her daughters who stay abroad are the ones who kind of, help her with pictures, help her guide how to, they even look up for new designs which she can include in her portfolio. Right? So it works together, and it's such a beautiful occasion for the generations to connect with each other. Right? I have a lawyer who is into blogging. He very frequent, every month he comes out with a blog. And I recently found out that he actually has a WhatsApp group with his younger family, his niece, nephew, and niece, and all. And so every month, it's the younger adults who help him out find the right images for the articles he has written. So it's such a beautiful way to stay connected. So his niece was telling me that, it's like we have so much fun working together, and it's his enthusiasm is so palpable. He's so excited about putting out the next content out there because he gets a lot of appreciation. There are lead readers who enjoy what he's writing. So that's his motivation. It keeps him going.
Absolutely. I mean, we are in the last 10 minutes of our panel discussion right now, this session. And interestingly, I mean, now there is a, how the young adults, in terms of like, they are going to be aging at certain point of times, when they are, in the journey of the parenting, when they are in the 30s, they are looking for the kind of the activities where their kids should be engaged. And when you or we become at the age of 45 and 50, we have to actively start looking at the activities where our parents could be engaged, and Silver Talkies is giving that kind of a platform for engaging the parents in a meaningful way and living I think the central theme is how to be independent, how to be less dependent, how could the interdependence would help, and how to have the purpose in the life also, because people, sort of like attached a lot of stereotypes कि age हो गया बस खत्म हो गया इसके बाद कुछ करना नहीं है, but there is a much more ahead, as Nidhi was talking. So what I would do at this point in time is, in the last segment, I'll encourage the audience to ask questions. Yes.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Sudhir. I am 66 and I'm still playing my first innings. Okay. I'm a trekker, a mountaineer, and I run training programs for all age groups. I don't have a question for you as such, but I would like to have your comment on something. What I feel is the preparation for aging or the second innings, as you're saying, should start a little early, and that initiative should be on the part of the individuals. So I have recommended to a few people, they should start thinking about their post-retirement things at least 5 to 7 years before they retire and start working on it. That is number one. And the biggest thing which I find is lack of initiative. I'll just give an example. Few days back, I happened to meet my class from colleges, right? So the comment was, why are you doing all these things? Why you're putting yourself at risk, right? I tell them, even last June I had been for a mountain expedition. They say, "Kyun kar raha hai tu ye sab?" So what I told them was the initiative should be on your part. Don't keep yourself behind bars. Do it something about it right now, because you won't be able to enjoy your second innings. So I would like to think that such a kind of rethinking about age, active aging and all that should put that initiative in their minds. That is very important. And if the initiative is not there, it's very difficult. Like telling people you go and do this. Yeah. No, I don't have a question. I'm just inviting a comment on this. So I put in the background.
I think you've actually very beautifully stated what the reality is,
Yes,
because not everybody is initiative driven. So, the examples that are quoted in the book don't apply to all, right? And yes, I think it's also to do a lot with the conditioning, how they have grown up, and their own mental barriers, right? Because in their head also, aging is to be done a certain way by taking care of grandchildren or living life a certain way. So I think that shift in mindset, unless it sets in, even that initiative will not come. So I think that's where we were discussing this yesterday, you know, how we have a very lofty challenge ahead of us where we have to actually change the mindsets itself first, because nobody understands it right now. Only very few people are, you know, starting, like yourself, who's starting to grasp it, and you're wanting to do it for yourself, but it will take some time. But at least we have started moving in that direction. I think that's what we can kind of take pride in, that the society is changing. There are people who are setting examples now.
Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. Your talk was very, hello, your talk was very interesting. And I have a few questions, not really for myself, even though I am a citizen, senior citizen. I want to talk about the elder care space that the program that you run. And firstly, I'd like to know where you are located. Is it in Bombay also?
So we actually work with a hybrid model.
Yeah,
We have a hybrid model, so we actually have members in multiple cities. So a lot of the engagement programs and the classes that I was talking about, they are all delivered online over Zoom. So anybody from any city can become a member and join.
So that itself is another issue, because sometimes people are not able to avail or work with that technology.
Yes.
So we probably need education for that, for this age of people. And I'm talking about 80, 85 years old. And my father still drives his own car. He's 85. And the other question I have is, ma'am, that the immediate family who looks after these people, sometimes they are the people who are not able to see deep into what their need is. Because self-respect is something that the parents also have. So like COVID times
So
we talked
like
about.
there was a whole wave of veganism 10 years back. Now there's a whole wave of carnivore diet. That is, you only eat meat-based foods because they base it on the fact that human brain actually.
Okay. Just let me complete my question so that ma'am can answer it. So what I was trying to say is that the immediate family sometimes doesn't understand this. Like you said, the emotional need part of it, or maybe they'll say, "Nee, we can manage it, we're okay." And they believe you. When me staying far away probably understands it a bit better. So how do we work towards making them understand that part?
I don't think I have a bullet answer for you, because I think that comes with, again, a lot of mindfulness and awareness and understanding your own parents, right? But I'll just quickly go back. So when I was, you didn't let me complete. So when I was saying we do it online, we do have a lot of volunteers who help seniors come online. And we also have offline meetups. So, in cities like Mumbai, in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, Delhi, where we have a handful of number of members, we also do quarterly meetups, because we understand that only online will not really meet the requirement. So that's what I was saying, we do a hybrid model. To your second question about how family can help, I think that is each one to their own, because that has to come from within, that empathy and that understanding, that compassion towards your own parent, and that comes from a lot of observation and picking up those cues. Yeah. No, that's true. And each day will not be same. Some days you will be able to pick it up, and other day you will not be able to pick it up, right? And as I said, that generation of seniors is also not very open to sharing or articulating what their need is, right? They're not very open to articulating. They feel they are being a burden if they are sharing. So they try to keep it to themselves. So
Yes.
it becomes very difficult to do it.
I have a question.
Hanji.
Because in Indian culture, the fourth phase of life is voluntary sannyasa. And the ashrams of Babas are crowded like anything. So don't you feel that, because you are telling them to take care of themselves, and these Babas are telling them to get voluntary sannyasa. So it's a big challenge. And that mental block is, don't you feel this as a challenge?
It exists. So for example, the other day, my parents are visiting me in Bangalore right now. My dad, I told them, why don't you come and watch a movie? He's 80 almost. He told me, नहीं मेरे को मूवी नहीं देखनी है, मैं साईं बाबा का टाइम हो रहा है, मुझे वो करना है, right? So it is true that, at that age, they tend to become very spiritually inclined. But what I have also observed, for example, I'll just talk from home here. I have also seen that it's actually keeping my parents very occupied. There's another good side of it. Imagine they having nothing to anchor onto. Sometimes spirituality actually, is an anchor for them to stay busy. So I was visiting Delhi. My parents currently are living alone by themselves. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I was very fascinated observing them, where they have a very packed schedule, which is a lot based on spiritual practices. Morning में उठ के meditation करते हैं, शाम को फिर से वो meditation करते हैं, वो साईं बाबा का serial देखते हैं. They will listen to bhajans. My mom's phone is playing bhajans throughout the day. But the fact of the matter is, it is actually keeping them alert. It's keeping their day full of something to do, especially for those who are living alone. Yes, the challenge may be when spirituality gets mixed up with religion, and then it becomes all about. You will have to find something else which can fill up their time.
I think. Yeah, we'll have one last question. Yes, please.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, ma'am. Thank you for the interesting session. I have an opposite question, actually. I just wanted you to throw some light. Did you ever encounter, you interviewed people between the age group of 55 plus. So did you ever encounter the problem of their overindulgence on social media?
Yeah, it's a very real issue again. Because they don't have anything else to keep their. It's like, you're looking for fillers. How do you stay busy? Like WhatsApp forwards. In my club group also, I keep telling, please don't trust all the forwards that you get. Please do not forward. But that's what they fill up their time with. And yeah, the good morning messages. That's where we have to bring in that shift, where we find better activities for them to be busy with. That's the change we need to, because right now they don't have anything to hold on to. So they're becoming dependent on watching YouTube videos or these WhatsApp forwards, and they believe anything and everything that comes their way. The other day they forwarded something around Narendra Modi ji ne ye bhajan gaya hai. Right? And no, it's not true. So wo check bhi nahi karte hain. They just believe it. And that's true. That's very true. What you're saying is a reality. So challenge is, you have to find alternatives for them. If you don't give them alternatives, how do you expect them to? They can't be sitting and, looking at a wall all day. We are not talking to them. We are not spending time with them because we have our own reasons. We are very busy in our schedules. What do we expect for them? So that is what we need to collectively solve for.
Yeah, I think with that note, I think it's a wonderful way of, adding life to the life, in terms of having them engaged in a purposeful and meaningful, engaged kind of life. And we as younger adults who are sitting over here have an active responsibility of, making these sunset years of life of the old people more fruitful, more meaningful.
एक last point जो हमने, I think I could not complete it. Companionship की जो हम बात कर रहे थे, right? How many people who are living alone because they lost their spouse? Has anybody thought about them? Can they have another partner? And why not? They have another 20 years ahead of them. They are living by themselves. Why not? Yeah, there are so many people who live. That shift is again starting to happen, right? But then there are extended families who will, oh my God, kya baat kar rahe ho? Right? So in my group also, we recently had one of our members remarry, and I felt so happy for him. It's like they also deserve a happy life. Why are we not looking at it?
And that's a huge problem. Almost like 15 million people,
Sorry?
and 2/3 of them are women only. So
Yeah, and women tend to live longer than men. So in our country right now, we have a few forums which have been doing this, but they are, kind of addressing a certain section of the society only. So for example, Gujarat mein there is one in Hyderabad called Thodu Neera. So they carry out these sammelans or matchmaking kind of a thing, and even live-in relationships are happening now. They are really happening now. So The point is, it can be done and it should be done, but are we doing it?
Thank you so much, ma'am and sir. Thank you so very much for that beautifully engrossing session, which felt very much like a warm embrace. For all the fresh insights we could soak up today, all that we are is extremely grateful and happy. Appreciating art through art is the least we could do. So as a token of our appreciation, we would like to present the author with a unique painting made specially for her by Zui Madhyeshwar from Alag Angle community. I request Zui to be on stage and present the painting to our author with the moderator. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, dear readers, for your patient listening.